This is Shabbos Tezvav. We're going to continue with the machloikis between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. If you could do things on Friday, even if the malacha is not going to finish until it gets dark. And we're going to see a little difference over here. Because clearly there's no reason in a Mishnah to just keep saying more and more examples. So I already talked about whether or not someone's going to be leaving a malacha to be done over Shabbos, and the main malacha is going to be done over Shabbos. In other words, you start dying right before it gets dark. The dying takes place during Shabbos. The question is, what processes are you allowed to leave, and what processes do you have to stop and you're not allowed to leave over? Now we're going to go one step further. Now we're going to see there's even a big difference between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel about Friday also. Beis Shammai is actually going to extend Melachas Shabbos to Friday. That means even on Friday, a person can't do certain Melacha. That's where the difference is going to be. Beis Shammai says, Ein noisnin inun shel pishtan l'toichat hanor. One may not place a bundle of flax into an oven alakidei she'avilu mevoid yoim, unless there is sufficient time for it to become heated while it is yet day. V'lo yizat semer l'yoira, nor may put wool into a vat. Alakidei she'kloit sa'ayin, unless there is sufficient time for it to absorb its color while it's still day. Beis Hillel material, Beis Hillel says mutter. So right here, we're not yet at the point where Friday is usher. It's still talking about a case where starting something before Shabbos and then seeing that the malacha is going to be done before Shabbos starts. And in these situations, so according to Beis Shammai, it's continuing with the malacha because either you see it like we talked about, or you may do something to help it, or it hasn't touched every single part of what you're going to do malacha on. Beis Shammai, the Gemara says, Mahu misani, what benefit do you get? In matter of fact, what are you looking for? The fact that either the flax gets heated up or the wool gets dyed. Amar Rabbi Avuhu is saying, Kigoin, Elaine Kuroi Dela Makpidin, such as the villagers who are not particular. In other words, you don't need it to get so fully warm or so fully dyed. You need it just for people who are not particular, and that would be enough. Sort of like cooking Ben Droisa. Ben Droisa the bandit, who only needed his food cooked 1/3. Cooking Ben Droisa is enough if it's going to be done on Friday still. Same thing with this malacha. Rabbi Yehuda b'shem Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Shmuel, V'hi shetehei hayara akura, this, that the vat was removed, right? So according to Beis Hillel, aval im haisa hayara kavua, but if the vat remained on the fire, asura, then it's asur. So Beis Hillel saying you're allowed to start a malacha, and as long as you remove the vat from the fire, you could leave the stuff in the vat. So you're allowed to have started the malacha, leave the stuff in the vat on Shabbos, so long as you removed it from the fire. Because we're afraid that the water is going to boil down and is going to add more water. So this explains the Mishnah. So Beis Hillel is saying that you're allowed to do malacha on Erev Shabbos. However, when it comes time for Shabbos, you have to make sure you're not going to do more malachas. In other words, I'm doing malacha, I'm dyeing. That's a malacha on Shabbos, which is fine. You're allowed to dye wool on Friday, even if it's not going to finish by the time Shabbos comes. But if I remove the vat from the fire and let the process keep going, even if I could see it, even if I would be compelled to help it, even if it didn't touch everything, those three shitas, Beis Hillel still say it's okay. Leaving it on fire is a problem because that actually might lead to malacha. Where Beis Shammai say, even if you remove the vat from the fire, the fact that you started dying before it was night, and it's not going to complete to a minimum before the nighttime, that itself is enough to be usher. That's now a new kunst difference between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Rabbi Shmuel b'shem Rav Avu. Rabbi Shmuel says the name of Rav Avu. Beis Hillel Yaflin Meleches Heter Malachas Aser. Beis Hillel derives when you can do malacha from when you can't do malacha. For instance, Ilu Asa came with Shabbos. If you do this on Shabbos, Shema Ein Aser, are you going to say it's not Aser? Right? They're going to say, so according to that same reason, Asa came avoid Yom. If you're still doing it when it's not, when it's still daytime on Friday, so then that's fine. It makes no difference what happens to the finishing. It all makes a difference of what you're doing it. If it's Shabbos, then it's Aser. If it's not Shabbos, it's not Aser. Next halacha Zayin. Beis Shammai say, Ein Feirishin Mitsudais Chaya V'Oifais V'Dogim. One may not spread out traps for wild animals, birds, or fish. Ella Kedei Sheyitsudu Mivoy Doim. Unless it's sufficient time to catch something while still day, or Beis Shammai Matirim. So again, with the same thing, Beis Shammai is making a malacha on Friday because you're going to do something that's going to actually do something, a malacha on Shabbos. So, but here's the difference here. They're actually saying you have to complete the malacha on Friday. So if you complete the malacha on Friday, of course there's no malacha. It's only when you start the malacha on Friday and you finish the malacha on Shabbos. You set the trap, but when you actually catch the animal, then in Shabbos. So the malacha you're doing on Shabbos, catching the animal, reverts back to when you set the trap, not from the fact that the trap is still there. Because I say hello, the trap is there. The second it was there before Yom Tif, the trap is there. And if it's there, the trap is doing the work on Shabbos. Beis Shammai, no. You set the trap on Friday without sufficient time to actually catch an animal. Therefore, it's a one continuous malacha to when you actually catch. Now, what's interesting is you don't actually have to catch an animal according to Beis Shammai. You just have to have enough time to catch an animal before Shabbos. So, for instance, let's say you put one in the woods, and it usually takes you about an hour and then an animal's caught. That's the average. So you put it in an hour and a half before Shabbos, and Shabbos comes, and you still haven't caught anything. That's fine. There was no problem. You don't have to remove the trap. You did enough to complete the malacha before Shabbos. When it comes time to, when we talked about a vat of dyeing or soaking vetch and those type of malachas, so then what happened? What were we talking about? Whether it was done before Shabbos came in, before dark, whether a certain amount would have been done, and the derech teva, it would have been done. Nothing would have stopped, really, the dye from soaking, the flax from heating, etc., etc. Here, there's another variable, and that variable is whether or not a bird or a fish will actually be caught. Beis Shammai is saying it doesn't make a difference. The derech tava was that it actually could be caught. Even if it wasn't caught, as long as you did it with enough time, that's fine. Now we're going to talk about, of course, in the Gemara, what do you do with those animals? If you know that it wasn't caught until Shabbos, or B, you don't know what wasn't caught before Shabbos. So now the Gemara is going to go to a brisa regarding Yom Tif. And it says, regarding traps of wild animals, fowl, or fish that was set prior to a Yom Tif. And remember, you're allowed to eat food on Yom Tif. You're allowed to shecht on Yom Tif. You're allowed to do things for Eichel Nefesh on Yom Tif. But you can't trap on Yom Tif. So, the halacha is that one may not remove from a trap on Yom Tif unless it was known that it was trapped before Yom Tif. So, my dear, how do we know whether or not the animal was actually trapped on Yom Tif? So, im niskalkala hamtsuda, you look from a distance and you see whether or not the trap was undone. So, davar bria shenitzadai bevoid yom. So, therefore, it must have been done when it was still daytime. V'im loy niskalkala hamtsuda, but if the trap was not undone, davar bri shaloi nitzuda bevoid yom. So, therefore, it must be that it wasn't done before day. So, you check it sometime after dark or early in the morning. You see, and basically you'll have the assumption if you see there's an animal there. It was done on Friday. It was done Erev Yom Tif. whatever day it was. And if not, then you could assume it was done. And you can go, you check on Yom Tov, and you see that the trap is not sprung yet, then obviously it was done on Yom Tov. So in other words, it's interesting. Only if you have a vadai that it was done on Yom Tif could you not use it on Yom Tif. But if you caught an animal, you're not really sure when you caught it, you could use it on Yom Tif. So afidu niskalkala hametsuda, but even the trap was undone. Right now, I'm going to ask the obvious question. Chash Leimer, maybe you should have an assumption, or you should worry that Shema Loi Nitsudam Void Yom. Maybe it wasn't done by Void Yom. It was done after it got dark. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi said to him, it's where we spread it in the woods. We're talking about we spread it in the woods, and the chances are, but derech tava, it happened, it took that time. Now, it's possible that it did not actually happen, but the odds are that it did happen. And again, we're going back to the odds. So what's amazing is, even if you go ahead and you trap on Shabbos or Yom Tov, but you set it up on Erev Yom Tov enough time, the trap is now doing the work. You did your malacha all Erev Yom Tov or all Erev Shabbos. Whatever is trapped now, that's yours because you trapped it, because you finished your malacha in that time span. Teda Lacha Shehu came. So you know this from another mission that we learned. Tnan Dagim, we learned regarding fish. The Dagim Laim Makam Shem Mitsuyin. Now, aren't fish caught where they're found? Inside of lakes or inside of rivers. The Makam Shechayav Oif Mitsuyim. You spread out for wild animals and for birds exactly where they're found. Abzer b'shem Rav, Abzer said Rav, Sevirin Meimar, they reason to say, Mutarin l'macher. So the fish are permitted to be handled, and they could be eaten tomorrow. So fish, automatically, at the very least, it's not muksa. Whether or not you want to be machmer and don't eat it, that's one story. But it's definitely not muksa. Rab Chizkiya, Rab Uziel, Bered Rav, Chunyav, the Rav Chavran. So what do they say? Mutarin mamish. It's mutar mamish. Eat it also. Listen, once you did it with enough time, you eat it. Savran Meimar Sveika Hetiru. The reason that the Rabbi Gamliel had a suffix regarding the Rabbanon and whether they permitted it or not, so that is their suffix. But if they had that suffix, it's one suffix. But then you go ahead and you find that you mutter to mutaltalins, then you mutter to eat it also. Once it's mutter, it's mutter. Rabbi Chananya, Rabbi Yonasan, Shrehain Amran, Rabbi Chananya, Rabbi Yonasan both said, suffix hachin aser. An object whose preparation is in doubt is aser. Rabbi Yechon Amar, suffix hachin mutter. Whether or not you paired it before Yom Tif is mutter. Again, there's muksa on Yom Tif, there's muksa on Shabbos. Things have to be prepared, have to be designated to be used on Shabbos or on Yom Tif, and there has to be a chana. So there's a machlokes whether or not the hachana is necessary to make something a regular object that you'd use anyway, or you could assume that it was had hachana without a specific hachana anyway. So one says it's machmer, one says an osir, and one says it's mekel, and says that it's mutter. Rab Chia, Ruva, Rab Shimon, Rab Chia the Great, and Rab Shimon, the son of Rabbi Chadamar, one says Hagoy Tzarech Chachen, anything that a goy gives you needed have a chana. The Charna Amar, and the other one says, Ein Hagoy Tzarech Chachen, if a goy comes to give you something on Shabbos or Yom Tif, it's not muksa, it does not require chana. Vladino man Amar Da. Now, do we not say an opinion already? The Ma Amar Da. You say this opinion. Mi ma davar ma'ane meise kume Rab Chia Ruva. That there was an incident which Rav was delayed from coming to Chia Ruva, the Chia the Great. Who Amar Lei. And Rav Chia said to him, Avesa, where were you? Who Amar Lei. So Rav answered him, Shayarta Havasa Avra. A non-Jewish caravan was passing by. And I was eating dates from them. Obviously, it does not need hachana from a guy. Havehu du Amar. Obviously, so he was saying, so you don't need to have hachana from something that a guy gave you. Chad Talmud min the Rabbi Simai. One of Rabbi Simai's Talmidim had an insight like this. Azal Antviris. He went to Antviris. V'aisen le Damaskinon v'achol. And a non-Jewish resident brought him some Damascinin or Damascinin plums from Damascus. That's where Eliezer Eved Avram was from. Talmud mid Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi also Taman, and there was a Talmud of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. You went there. Va'isale demarskina delo achol, and the residents over there brought him the same plum, and he did not eat it. Va'asa mar kumei Rebbe, and the disciples of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi came before his Rebbe, and he told him. Amalei says to him, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said to his Talmud, do the hagig b'shitas Rabbi Simai. He must have held like Rabbi Simai. Rabbi Simai Amar, Rabbi Simai says, Ein hagoy tzarech hachin. What a guy gives you does not require chana, it's not muksa, and it's mutter mamish. Rabbi Avu b'shem Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Avu said to Rabbi Levi, Demadminos Sheb Kerem Hari Elu Asurais. Unripe grapes from the vineyard are asur because they're not ripe on Shabbos, therefore they are noilad and they are muksa. Rav Huna b'shem Rav, b'shem Rav, if sheitzim sheba kapayim, if they're stuck between thorns upon branches, hari elu mutar, and then they're mutar. Because even though it requires some work to get them, they're not considered that they weren't prepared. They were there, they're ripe, they're ready to eat. The fact that they have to be a little bit of inconvenience to get them, so you get them. So long as you don't have to do malacha. So long as you do malacha, you get them, and therefore they're considered that they were prepared on Erev Yom Tif, and they are mutter. Halacha ches Beishamai say ein moichrin l'nachri one may not sell to a non-Jew on Erev Yom Tif or Erev Shabbos. The loy tanin animai or load him up. The loy magbi in a love or lift up onto his shoulder. Ella Kadesh Agila Makam Karaiv, unless he has a sufficient time to go to a nearby place, or Beisil Matir. Beisil says mutter. Clearly, you're talking about doing it in Rosh Hashanah, and clearly you're talking about him getting to Rosh Hashanah, and the guy is doing malacha. So Beishamai said it's Asher. Beisil says mutter. So what's happening here is not even the Jew is doing the malacha, the guy is doing the malacha. But it seems to be a malacha on consent. In other words, even though you're giving something for the guy, and the guy is taking it for himself, if the Jew started it and the guy finishes it, then it's like the Jew sent him as a messenger, according to Beishamai, and he has to finish the malacha. A guy cannot do malacha for you on Shabbos. You giving it to the guy, Erev Shabbos, is like asking the guy to go to his house or go to a nearby place. And if the guy does it, it's like he's doing it for you. Even though you gave it to the guy, it's for the guy. Even though you sold the bride to the guy, the transaction was beneficial to you. Even if you gave something to the guy, clearly you only did it because the transaction benefits you. And if a transaction benefits you, so the fact that the guy goes ahead and does a malacha, that's considered like you're sending him to do malacha. It's like a mir lakum. And he has to finish the malacha before it gets dark. And if he's not able to finish the malacha before it gets dark, then it could be Shammai's also. But Hill says, what are you talking about? Hey, your transaction finishes. What the guy does, the guy does. Like sending it to the end. Let the wind do it. The wind is doing it. It's like something else is going. It's a grandma. It's not you. So Bishami says that has to get to a place before it gets dark. So Ezu Makam Karev. What is considered a nearby place? Yeva Kea Demar Shmuel. They apply this question to Rabbi Shmuel. To going min Chutra Lenharda. It's equivalent to going from Chutra to Naharda, which is not very far. Uf Achakain. Here too, it's talking about he has to get to the nearest Rosh Hashanah. Is the boy Meimar, there's no wish to say, Achahu Magia Levesai, unless he's able to reach his house. This the Amar Meimar, those who should say, Achahu Magia Leiroi. He has to at least get to the outskirts of his own city. You're sending him Rosh Hashanah. He's obviously in a Jewish place. He's going to a non-Jewish place, either his house or to his city. He has to get to where he's going. If you know that that's where he's going. Rabbi Akiva says, "Kidei sheyetza makam Pesach, v'yikta ashalav hayayim." It's sufficient time for him to exit through your doorway before the day is sanctified. Before the day is mekadesh. In other words, it can't look like you gave him something in your house and he took it out of your house. It looks like he's doing it for you. So all you have to do is just make sure he's in public. And if he's in public, then whatever he does like the Gisol says, let him finish it wherever he goes on his own account. Amar Rabbi Yechon says, Zu divrei Rabbi Yosi. These are the words of Rabbi Yosi. And Rabbi Akiva ba'al ha'achri al divrei Beis Hillel. And Rabbi Akiva, like we just said, was really explaining Beis Hillel. Lagai al manas lotzeis. In a nice name, lagai al manas lotzeis. One may not give food to a non-Jew if he expects him to remove it from the house. Not all yatsa, but if the guy is in your property, he takes it by himself, ein at zakuk lo, you don't have to stop him. Ein noisim zaynos l'kelev al manas lotzeis. You can't give a dog food if you know it's going to drag it outside. If it's in its mouth, it's one thing, but if it's dragging outside, it's going to be going from rishus to rishus. It's your. It seems like it's your dog. Otherwise, because otherwise, why are you feeding it? Or you're responsible for feeding it, you're giving it to feed, so then you're getting the benefit of feeding this dog. So then the dog going out is now doing it on your account, not on the yatsa. He took it and removed it. Ain't adzak like so. In other words, you put it in the bowl, let the dog take it by itself and go out. No problem. You don't have to stop it. Tane usona braysa. Umnin Goyim Shu Isin Im Yisrael. Goyim that work for a Yisrael. So what's a law? Bisach Beisai Shal Yisrael. If the work is being done at the Jew's house, usher. It's usher. But if they do it at their own house, at their own time, you didn't tell them to do it on Shabbos. You just said this is the work that has to be done, and they do it at their own time, at their own house, then it's mutter.